Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn Live with Lynn. I'm Lynn, your host, and I go live each and every Thursday at 12:15. And hopefully you're getting a break from whatever you're doing, working, you're having some lunch, maybe you're going for a walk and tuning in. Whatever it is, I hope that you have a good break from your daily to-dos, work to-dos, whatever it is you are doing today. And one of the things that got me thinking about today's live and what I would be talking about was my dog. I have a 13-and-a-half-year-old Shih Tzu, and she's at the end of her life. And, sadly, but fortunately, we are making the choice to put her down, to euthanize her, because she's no longer living the life that she's enjoyed for so many years. She's been an amazing dog. And if any of you pet owners have had to face the same choices, the same decision, going through the same thought process, you know how heart-wrenching it is. But it is time. She's been an incredible furry friend to my twin daughters. Basically, they got her when she was 10 or 12 weeks old, and they are now, just dealing with this gratitude for having a dog for 13 and a half years for most of their lives, and also, partly mourning that she's no longer going to be with us. And it's been a tough decision. And thinking about her end of life and kind of equating that to end of life for people really kind of inspired me to talk about it, because it is a topic that's really, really difficult for people to talk about, let alone prepare for. But it is so very important to not only talk about it, but to be prepared for it. And of course, preparing for end of life for a human is very different than preparing for end of life for a pet. Similar, sadness, similar, thoughts and memories, and, everything kind of just comes out in an emotional outpouring. And when it comes to euthanizing your pet, as hard as it is, you have to think about their quality of life. My dog can't hear, she can't see, she's falling down, she's skin and bones, her quality of life isn't there. So we're doing what's in her best interest at this point in her life. Unfortunately, here in the United States, that isn't done as often with humans. Now, that's a whole nother subject of another broadcast. But today I wanted to go through some steps that we as humans can do to prepare our loved ones, because whether you have a terminal illness or you pass away suddenly due to an accident, it's so very important to be prepared. And my mom actually passed away last year, and she was pretty well prepared. She had some lists and things that she talked to me about, and beneficiaries and those types of things. She wasn't as prepared as she could have been, however. And here I am a year later, still dealing with some of the aftermath of her estate. But I wanted to go through some of these things that you can do to prepare yourself, to protect yourself, your family, your money, your assets. And it's so very important to do. And many, many Americans don't do this. They don't have an estate plan, trust, will. At the very least, you need to have beneficiaries. Absolutely, 100%. You need to make sure that your beneficiaries are there, they're updated. Like, as things change in your life, make sure you update your beneficiaries. So I want to go over what I call 5 steps to legacy planning. And I will link in the show notes to this document so that you can go download it. It's free to access on the Her Retirement website. I also have a website that you should go check out. It's called www.getherwilldone.com. On that website is a free download to an estate planning organizer. There is access to our estate planning e-class. There's access to a preferred vendor that we recommend for trusts and wills. And then there's also access to my personal information and emergency planner. This one is for her. It's the Her Personal Info and Emergency Planner. It's for your family to keep calm and carry on with all the important stuff inside. So, for instance, the contents has everything from family information like household information, personal documents, medical info, pet care, family insurance, financial info, investment info, rental property, housing, vacation property, business ownership, a rewards program, where to find your documents, keys, and more, employer info, online account info, burial, memorial service preferences, personal notes, and contact notes. One of the interesting things that I like about this that I put together, it's over 100 pages long, and you can print it out like I have here and put it into a binder and hand complete it, or you can download this as an electronic file, a PDF, and it's a fillable PDF, which means you could use your computer just to fill in all the information and store it electronically. So again, it has all that personal, financial, and legal information that you should have at your fingertips for yourself or your family members. This one is for her. So if you are a single, widowed, or divorced woman, I also have a couples planner. So if you're coupled up, you can go check that out also. But to get access to this planner, emergency binder is what I also call it and what other people call them, you can go to getherwilldone.com, or you can go to heremergencyplanner.com. And on that page, you can access the couples version if you would prefer. But one of the things that I like about this is personal notes. And basically what I've had, the pleasure of putting together for people is letters to your spouse, letters to your children. So you can write those in this binder. Hard to do. I've done it. It's hard to do, but it's so cherished to those you leave behind. I also have a section called Love Notes, where you can write about your favorite memory of us, how you always made me laugh. I've never been more proud of you, my dreams for you. This is maybe to your spouse, your child, those types of things. My favorite pastime, favorite song, my favorite food. This is things you want someone to know about you, your earliest memory, your happiest memories, the person who had the greatest influence on your life. One thing I always wanted to do, but I didn't, a funny story I always wanted to tell you, my favorite family tradition that I hope you can carry on, what I want you to know about life, working, and family. If I could tell you one thing about marriage, it would be my best piece of advice for when you become a parent is my one piece of advice I wish I got earlier in life. So these are all things that you carry with you when you pass, but you're able to share these treasures, your thought treasures, with the people you care about when you complete this personal info and emergency planner. There's sections where you can write free-form letters, who the letters are to. And then really important section is contacts. So my mom did a pretty good job of giving me contacts, but then I had to go dig around for contacts. And so having that contact section is really important. Passwords is another one that's really important. So this is a place where you can record passwords. And then wherever you store this and whoever you store it with is important. So perhaps you don't want anyone to have access to it until you pass. So you could ask your lawyer to keep it with your estate plan. You could keep it in a strong box with a lock on it. And whoever is your person, you can say, okay, in case of an emergency, in case I become incapacitated or when I pass, go access this. It's got everything you need. Sometimes it's called the red file. I've heard it called that. And of course, you can scratch this all out on a piece of paper or, in a Word document, but this gives you all the prompts, over 100 pages of prompts to make sure you don't forget anything. And that's one of the keys is, preparing for your end of life and putting in your end of life wishes, where you want to be buried, cremation, sprinkle my ashes on the lake, whatever those end of life wishes are. I don't want to be in a church, I don't want to be in a cemetery, or, I need the rabbi, or I need the priest, or all of that you can plan in advance. And, it was great from the perspective of knowing exactly what my mother wanted because we communicated. She told me, she wrote it down, and I could just carry out her wishes and not have to figure it out. It just makes the process so much easier. It's obviously horrible and, gut wrenching and all of those emotions. The financial aspect of it, if it's your spouse or even a child, God forbid, but having all that financial information is so very important because my kids wouldn't know where my IRA is, my Roth, life insurance, canceling car insurance, like all of that stuff. It's so important to have your people know all that information. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to gather information. Obviously, you don't have to get my my personal info and emergency planner. It's here, it's available, it's cost, it's a couple cups of Starbucks coffee, basically. But it's truly a valuable resource for you. So now I want to get into some steps to legacy planning, because this is one step, right? I would say that this is a step that you can do outside of legacy planning. It can be part of it, but this personal info binder and planner, it's so valuable to you while you're living, because how often have you ever taken a complete inventory of everything you have and put it in one place so that when you need to go get information, contact numbers, where do I have this, where do I have that? Maybe you didn't know that you left some, employer 401ks in different places and bank accounts and CDs or, whatever. I just remembered the other day that I have a joint account with my mom at a credit union, and I need to go close that out. So it's those types of things that it's important not only for your family and part of your legacy planning, but it's a great tool to have while you're still alive, right? Being organized is such a great way to feel better. If you're unorganized and your things are scattered and you don't know what you have, and trust me, when you get organized, if you're not organized financially, legally, personally, you're going to feel 100% better. So prioritize that however you end up doing it. Make it a priority. So let's talk about steps to legacy planning. I mentioned that it's a lot of Americans don't have a legacy plan, estate plan. It does not have to cost an arm and a leg. Like, I think when people hear estate plan, they think, oh, I don't have a big estate. No, it doesn't really matter. It's important to look at what you have and make sure that whatever you have is going to go to the right place. And actually, as part of legacy planning is saying, okay, I want to make sure that I leave something, either financially or physical, the car, the artwork, whatever, to the right people. So that's leaving the stuff on, right? Financially, I was talking with a woman just yesterday, and she said, this is what I have, and kind of went through all of her financial stuff. And I asked the legacy question, do you want to leave something to your two children? She said, yes, I would like to leave one of my deferred accounts to my children. So let's see if I'm going to need it, because I hope that I can leave it to my children. Now, the other part of that discussion from a financial perspective is you could use all your children's inheritance and still leave them an inheritance in the form of life insurance. So that is something to consider. But in terms of legacy planning, so important if you're partnered up. I've said this before, the average age of widowhood is 59. So it's very important, ladies, to have a conversation with your significant other. Make sure that you both know the plan, understand the plan, set your goals. Obviously, you wouldn't start a road trip without first deciding on a destination. So, you don't want to start planning your estate and legacy plan without deciding exactly what it is you want to accomplish. And, take time to think about it, right? Um, Talk through it with the trusted people in your life, your legacy goals, and obviously you're going to put it all down in writing as part of what I'm recommending today. You know, Passing on those assets to your children and other heirs or charities, um, you know, you need to think about, like, do you want them to do whatever they want with those assets? Or do you want to put restrictions or limitations on them? And like I said, we're not just talking about financial concerns. You want to consider perhaps charitable legacy. Are there issues or causes that are important to you? And do you want to make an impact with those causes? I talked about those love notes and thoughts and ideas. So, you have accumulated so much wisdom and insight. And so those are things that you can leave and share. You could record a story. I actually wrote a book called Moms Be Happy Book that my children don't know exists. It's okay, they don't watch my lives, but it's under lock and key. And my oldest knows that when something happens to me someday, he unlocks the box and they each get their copy of that book. So yeah, I wanted to share those thoughts with them, something for them to take with them. Yeah. So I said that it's very important, if you're partnered up, for you and your partner to be on the same page, obviously financially, but with legacy planning, it's so important. And also very important is if you're in a second relationship, right? That gets a little more complicated. So all the more reason to have this conversation, because, in my case, he has 3, I have 3. We've, purchased things together. What goes where, who gets what, so important to have those conversations and have those plans in place. And then the final place that I think that it's really important to have the conversation is with those that you're leaving things to. So I know in the case of my dad, we haven't really had the conversation. That's just not the type of person he is. But I've had initial conversations with my kids. I'm still relatively young, but the older I get, the more I'm going to share my wishes with them, share this binder with them. They know about the life insurance and things like that I have set up for them. But having that conversation so that they are aware and they're not just reading it from a piece of paper is so important. And I have some suggestions. I actually have a little checklist on how to have the conversation, either with your spouse or with your children. And make sure your children understand who your trusted advisors are. Maybe have them meet them, have them, have a meeting, a family meeting, so that they know these people and can connect with those people when they need to. Yeah, I think, it's just a process, and the process has some other important steps that I wanted to share with you. Talked about some family challenges, of course, depending upon the complexity of your family, there are those challenges. In the case of my mom, there was 4 of us. I was her executor, and my brothers kind of deferred to me. They're like, you and mom were the closest because you're the only girl. You knew everything. She wrote everything down. She had the conversations with you. You're running point on this. And as hard as it was to run point, I had, my mom entrusted me to do this. So as hard as it was, I kept saying, I can do this, Mom. I can run point on this. But my brothers just knew that I was my mom's trusted person to do this. And they just said, let us know if you need help. And you know what Mom wanted. And so it was very easy. They were very compliant. There was no issues. It would be nice if every family was like that, but that's not always the case. And that's why it's very important that you have these conversations and you put these plans in place. Business, if you own a business, that's another challenge. So in my case, I do co-own a business with my significant other, and we do have separate families, separate kids. So we have those things in place to eliminate any issues, right? Yeah, you really, really need to have a business succession plan, and all of those legal documents and plans in place is super important if you have a business, and even more importantly, if the business has significant value, you definitely want to make sure you have a succession plan for your business. Legacy challenge, it's not as easy as simply writing it in a will. There's a lot of challenges, for instance, making sure that you pass on your money. Let's say it's going to a charity. You want to make sure that the chosen charity has an indication of how you would want those funds to be used. Another consideration is how your heirs will feel if you donate to a charity. So again, having those conversations with your family up front is important. There's financial challenges. You want to consider any threats to the size of your estate. There is a federal estate tax exemption. So you need to understand what those are. And with the right advisors, the right team of people, they can make sure that you're protected from those things. But you're going to sit down with your team and you're going to say, here's what I've got. Here's what I want to achieve. What is the best way to do this? What is the best way to pass on my assets to my family? From a tax efficiency perspective, from a perspective of, are they responsible and mature, and will they make the right decisions with this money? Should I put restrictions or limitations? We need to consider probate and administrative expenses, which can eat into your estate and drain your assets. You want to recognize those costs so you can try to minimize them as much as possible. A study from Mount Sinai School of Medicine found more than 40% of all couples spend 100% of their assets on healthcare during the last 5 years of their life. So while you can't control your health, you can take steps to minimize this financial damage. So one thing you could consider is long-term care insurance, which can help with the bill. A living will and a medical power of attorney can give your family some guidance on which treatments to implement and which to avoid. Again, planning ahead, right? Planning ahead is so important. It can help minimize these costs and maximize your legacy. So once you've prioritized your goals and identified any obstacles, it's important to put a plan in place. And this is where your team of advisors, financial, legal, can be like a huge asset. They'll review your goals and your challenges, and they'll recommend very specific steps that you can take to overcome any challenges and meet your objectives. Let's see. If you're leaving a substantial amount of money to a charity, I want you to drop documents stating how that money is to be used. And this is also in this planning strategy phase, it's a good time to speak to your insurance professional about some specific options for your legacy. Second to die life insurance can be an effective tool for married couples. As the name suggests, it pays out a death benefit when the second person in the couple passes away, maximizing the benefit for the next generation heirs. Fixed indexed annuities are another useful strategy. They give you the opportunity to potentially grow your assets, but without the volatility existing in the stock market. Some annuities also have a death benefit enhancement that can increase the money left to your beneficiaries. and some also have some long-term care riders. So important to understand those. And then once you have it, like I said earlier, you need to communicate the strategy. Um, you know, set up that meeting where you're going to have a family meeting, you're going to pull all the parties together, and you're going to talk about it and make sure everybody understands who's doing what. Even choosing your executor with your kids sometimes can be challenging. Um, depending upon personalities and relationships, you want to try to get that all worked out, because the worst scenario that I can think of is after you pass, nobody knows their role and people are fighting about their role. So very important to have that put out in advance. And then you want to review this regularly, right? So they say like every 5 years, you need to have your will updated. Trust. You need to know when you should use a trust, revocable, irrevocable, and if a trust is even necessary. But you want to review it regularly, and especially knowing those beneficiaries. So in this document that I'm going to provide a link to, there is a beneficiary checklist, which is a great thing to have. Basically lists your account, the type of account, the primary beneficiary relationship, secondary relationship, and when it was last updated. And anything like marriage, divorce, remarriage, birth of a child, adoption, new job, retirement plan rollover, birth of a grandchild, new insurance policy, establishment of a trust, all of these things and more can trigger a need to update your beneficiaries. So this is a very important thing to make sure you update, because you certainly don't want your monies, your assets going to the wrong people. Also, healthcare proxy, any other end of life kind of health issues, and those types of things need to be in place as well. So I want to talk about, as I wrap up this week's Lunch and Learn Live, and I guess it's a little bit of a somber conversation, especially since I'm just about to euthanize my dog, which has kind of got me down. But I've life goes on, and she's such a cute, sweet little dog. If she could talk, she'd be like, "You still need to go do your thing." So that's what I'm trying to do. But as I wrap up today, thank you for listening. And I want to talk about 24 documents you need to compile before your death. All right. So let's talk about it. The essentials: a will, a letter of instruction, and trust documents. Like I said, you may not need a trust. There are certain instances when you do. I do have some materials on that. You can watch my estate planning webinar. You can access that on the Her Retirement website. So if you go to herretirement.com and you go up to courses drop down, you can purchase access to the estate planning basics webinar. I want to say it's like 45 minutes long, but in addition to the actual course, there's lots of documents that come with the course. So it's well worth the $37 fee for that course. Next set of documents is proof of ownership, housing, land, cemetery deeds, escrow mortgage accounts, proof of loans made, debts owed, vehicle titles, stock certificates, savings bonds, brokerage accounts, partnerships and corporate operating agreements, tax returns. And I highly recommend that you put these all in one safe place. I have a file cabinet. I actually got this file cabinet when I was 12 years old. That's what I wanted for my 12th birthday, a file cabinet. So my kids call me a geek, but I just wanted my stuff organized. And so putting everything in one place, along with, either the emergency binder or where it can be located online, is important. You can obviously scan all these documents and put them in an online vault. But also healthcare, you need a durable healthcare proxy, power of attorney form, a living will, bank accounts, list of all usernames and passwords, any safe deposit box, life insurance and retirement, your life insurance policies, individual retirement accounts, 401k accounts, pension documents, annuity contracts. And then as far as marriage and divorce, your marriage license, divorce judgment and decree, qualified domestic relations order if you have one, and authorization to release protected health care information form. And those are 24 of the most important documents. You might have many more, but again, in my personal info and emergency planner, you can record all of that and where the actual documents are located. So I hope that this has been given, has provided you some insightful information into estate planning. And perhaps you knew some of this stuff and you've just been putting it off and procrastinating because, after all, like, talking about end of life is not the most joyous of conversations, or just recording all this information, or writing your love notes, or, writing those memories that you have of your own life or those you care about. It's not easy, but it's such a gift. It's such a gift, financially, emotionally, legally. So make sure you give yourself a gift, your family a gift, and take care of this. It does not have to cost an arm and a leg. We have access to a trust and will provider, so you can get a trust and will in place very affordably. And if you go to getherwilldone.com, you can access that affordable trust and will provider. So put it on your calendar, hold yourself accountable, and get her done. Thanks for watching and listening this week for Lunch and Learn with Lynn.